Welcome to a short 78 Camaro video. We gave up on the comp cams push rods for our second length. I don't remember if they were the 7/8 or the 8/8. I think they were the 7/8. Yeah. So we went with Trick Flow, still a 3/8, still hardened, you know, all the same specs, different brand, same cost, but we were able to get 8 of them. They kept pushing us out. The comp cams, you know, I'd get another email from Summit saying, oh, it's not this week, it's not next week, it's next month, then it's next month. And then they just told me it'd be maybe in November. So we were like, nope, cancel those. So today, I'm going to clean some push rods, drop them in. We'll be right back. Okay, something I'm going to go over real quick. New does not mean clean or good. Just because this is in a bag doesn't mean it's clean and ready to go in your engine. So this push rod, oil goes through here. You know, you guys can't see it, but I can see through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean all the packing oils off, just using a mild solvent, you know, brake clean. We're going to clean all the passages inside out. Then when they go in, even though this is a roller setup, going to put a little bit of 30 weight down on each lifter as we go. And on the ends, going to put a little bit of break-in lube. Does it have to be there? Probably not, but it doesn't hurt. Going to add a little bit of cam paste to the push rod tips, or not the push rod, the valve tips. Just, even though they're rollers, just so that anything that wants to break in can. So I'm going to sit here for the next probably 15-20 minutes, clean out push rods. I'm going to start with just the ones from comp. When those are done, then we'll do these. So that way, I'll just drop in all my intakes at once, all my exhausts at once. Remember, we had 2 different lengths. Here, let me show you why. So let's get you through. Remember, these are splayed. They're not straight up and down like in a small block. These are splayed, so you're going to have 2 different length push rods. If you want to really see weird push rod lengths, look at a Hemi motor where the springs are on the other sides and one is just really long. But you're going to notice one has to be a little longer than the other. So you come here, intake. Oh, intake valve is closer to the intake side. Exhaust valve closer to the exhaust side. Problem is, intake being closer here is a shorter push rod. Exhaust being further away is a longer push rod. So this is going to be our 7.8s. This is going to be our 8.8s. Just happened to work out that math. In a previous video, we did all those measurements. Not an uncommon length. So we're pretty happy. Anyway, I'm going to start cleaning. We'll be right back. I don't want to make this video super long. Okay, I've got quite a few of them ready to go. I kept one of each to show you the construction. So you can see, and aftermarket ones like this will always be listed. So an 8/8 and a 7/8. They're both 80 wall thickness, 3/8 push rods with a 5/16 ball end. Note, your engine may be different. These, it doesn't matter which direction they go in, your engine may be different. Always look. There could be push cups, there could be 2 different ball ends. So, you know, verify with your shop manual how your engine's assembled, but this is pretty typical for a small and big block Chevy, this particular setup here. Now, all of these were brand new in packaging. I don't know if you can see all the debris in this pan that came out of these push rods. And that's typical. It's not like they did anything wrong. It's just how machining works and how cleanup and manufacture works. You're responsible for cleaning all your new parts. Remember, we clean the heads, we clean everything because they're packaged for shipping and storage, not for use. So in here, you'll see, now I haven't done number 1 yet because they're sitting right there. But remember, we were talking about how the intake side here, you can see the intake valve, is going to be shorter because it's closer, and then the 8/8 is on the exhaust port side. These ride, I know we've discussed this in other videos, but they ride in the little cup in the lifter. We're going to go ahead and get these 2 push rods in. I'm going to pull and start cleaning up roller rockers. We'll get those set on here, ready to go, and we will lash one pair. Just so you can see the method that I like for hydraulics, and we'll go from there. Okay, so what I've been doing, these have all been sprayed down to get any material off of them, making sure they're all clean. And then one thing to note on these rollers, on this trunnion, you'll see that side's round. Hopefully you guys can see that. This side has a machined groove. That's where the poly lock goes. That has to be up, so away from the head. And then you don't have to do this, but I'm just introducing a touch of oil at the bearing surface there, making sure that that's up, placing it over the rocker, making certain that the end of the push rod goes into the little cup and that the roller is over the valve stem. And then as soon as these are done, I'm going to clean all these poly locks. That is absolutely critical. Those have to be clean or they may not function correctly. You may wind up with some junk on a thread that makes you think it's where it is, or you think you have it locked, but you don't. So it takes a couple minutes, pop all the little set screws out, clean all the threads, because this is what goes on, and that little set screw is what locks it once you've got your play set up. So let me get a couple of these cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and set the lash on one cylinder. I'll explain the method I like to use, where I'm chasing instead of doing bulk at a time. If you were doing this day in and day out, doing 50 motors a day, well, that'd be different. You would worry, you know, if you're on number one, you know, you got to do the complement, that sort of thing. I'm just gonna follow the firing order. So we're gonna do number one, turn a little bit, you know, gonna do number 8. So remember, 1, 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, 2. We're just gonna chase the firing order, mark each one, and I'm going to do each of them during the firing stroke. So both valves will be fully closed. Right here, we happen to be on that stroke, so I know that's safe to start with number 1. So both of these will be all the way down. I'll explain all that in just a minute. Okay, I've got 2 cleaned up. Remember, a set of brushes costs hardly anything. In fact, I bet Amazon sells them really cheap. So I've got these 2 cleaned up. We're just going to gently thread them on. And you notice I barely have the set screw in. I don't want that to come into play. So we happen to already know that we're at top dead center on the compression stroke. But if you were worried about it, you would just, because we don't have an intake on, there we go, you would be able to actually watch the base circle down here and actually turn. So all we're going to do is, right now it's real easy on this intake to move this push rod. I'm going to go gently turning it down on the poly until it starts to contact. And because these aren't pumped up and they're not under any hydraulic pressure, it's just the spring holding the cup up right now. So you see I've still got a little play. I'm running out of play. Okay, there's still, I'm not quite at 0 lash. Okay, right here, right there, I'm at 0 lash. There's no play in the push rod to the cup. So the spring holding that cup up and this surface on the valve being held up by a spring and retainer pushing back, that is no play. Then I'm going to take my 5/8, and depending on what you build, there's going to be different rules of thumb. One thing to note, we know the thread pitch of the studs, so we know how far we're going to push down when we turn it. On this one, I am going to go to net zero, that's a term now, 0 lash. I'm going to add half a turn and a 1/4 turn. That 3/4 is going to give me a very acceptable lash for my hydraulic. Then I'm going to take and gently turn that in until it's seated. Well, probably easier with this. Just hold the poly where it is and snug it up with the set screw. One thing you're going to find, because all of this is machined and it should all be precise, you should find that the number of exposed threads that you see here for each of the intakes should be the same. For each of the exhausts, they'll all be the same as each other. So we're going to take another one of these. And different lash mechanisms are going to be set up for different engines and for different applications. For what we're doing here, this is going to be plenty. So I'm getting down. Okay, right there is my 0. I'm going to take my half and my quarter. Spin that guy down. Alright, number 1 is ready. The next one I would look at then, I'm going to chase the firing order, is number 8. So I'm going to come here and let's talk this through. Every revolution of the crank is half of the firing order. So every time the crank goes once, we're going to do 1, 8, 4, and 3. The next revolution is going to be the other half, because this spins at half the speed of this. So that has to go 2 times to do the full revolution. So if this is top dead center on 1 and I turn it 90 degrees, we are now at top dead center on number 8. And you can see those valves are closed. So if I did another 90 degrees, so let me come here, do another 90 degrees, which you can see here. Now we're going to look at 4. So remember, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2, 4. 4 is now down on the base circle. If I do it again, then we hit 3, and if I bring her around here, because now I'm watching number 1, so now as that comes here, that is a 180. So number 6 is now the one that's on its firing circle, and you'll notice what's happening here on number 1. You start looking in here, and you'll notice the valve is open. As I keep going, look, intake opening more and more. See it turning here, see the spring opening? So right here, we're nosing over on number 1. Hopefully you guys can see this. So, okay, the intake just went. Now watch what's going to happen here after we fire. Okay, we fired, and now the exhaust is opening. So you can see the exhaust is opening and that spring is going down. And these are the only ones working because they're the only ones polyed. So I'm going to go ahead, get back to top dead center on number 1, and I'm going to chase, and I'm going to get all of these guys adjusted, and then we're going to come back and step through and watch them all open and close. Okay, so we've done 1, 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7. We just finished 7. And then as I'm chasing, all I'm doing is as I'm turning, I'm watching the intake valve. Well, that's easier said than done. Until it closes. That'd be easier if it was tight, but you can see I've turned it enough that intake is now on the base circle. Hopefully you can see that. The exhaust is obviously closed because it'll be closed for a while until we fire. So now it's time to do that set. All of the rest of them looking good. Okay, real quick, before I cycle through all the way, I've already done it once, but I'm going to show you a thing. The keyway on the crank, which is here on the balancer, happens to also line up with 0. That's how I know where I am when I look at the woodruff. If I line that up to this point, I know that's top dead center without having to have the balancer. So we currently are on the firing stroke of number 1. Let me turn that. Let's get you guys looking inside. So remember, 1 is this one. So 8 happens to still have the exhaust valve open just a little bit. It's just closing. So as I start coming through, I just watched 8's intake is opening. And as you go, at the same time, you're going to notice that number 4 is starting to open. See right here. So they constantly are moving, constantly going. So now it's 4's intake is opening. And then we're going to see 3's intake open. So intake, 3. You're going to watch this one starting to come up. Or I'm sorry, intake. I'm standing at a funny angle. So see, 3. So 1, 8, 4, 3. 6 is now going to have its intake opening. So that'll be this one. 5 is getting ready. You just saw 5's exhaust closing. Intake's getting ready to open right here. Now the valve is closing for the exhaust on 7. 7 is getting ready to open. And you can see 7 is opening. Same thing's about to happen on 2 over here. 2 intake valve is open. Now, what that tells me is I am almost on the compression stroke. So watch. Gonna charge it. Coming around. And we're getting close. Right about there. It's top dead center here. This spark plug, well, considering we're probably gonna have sparked somewhere around 18-20 degrees advanced, so I mean it already fired, but it's just starting to push on the piston. Everything's moving, everything looks good, everything's got oil or whatever lubricant we want on it. I'm very happy with that. So there, we now finally have push rods. This should have been done months and months and months ago, but that's the way this goes with shipping nowadays. I think the next thing I'm going to do is set the intake down and make sure that our valley angles here are good. There's no point in trying to put any gaskets in if that needs planed. That is a used intake. It's been on a different motor. We don't know its history. So let's take a peek. All right, no gasket, just threw a couple bolts in, nothing crazy, just to keep it centered. And all I'm doing, see, we're sitting all the way down here. Now remember, these will come up a little bit, but what I care about is that this angle is the same and that angle is the same. As things get milled and machined, those angles can change relationship with each other. And if you recall, we got bid on that in the past on the supercharged motor for the 55. But this looks pretty good. I'm going to go out on a limb and say no machine work has been done to this intake. So, well, I mean, outside of adding nitrous bosses. So we're going to go with it. Okay, we've got a little RTV curing up a little, and I'm prepping bolts. So, these are ARP bolts. I put a little bit of the ultra torque under the head, and then each one of these will then get a washer. Notice there's a divoted area in there, or a chamfer. That's the one that goes against the head. Without the ultra torque between the washer and the head of the bolt, your torque spec could be wrong. So by adding that little bit, spinning the washer on it a little bit, that'll help, because these go into either oil or water, so they're going to get PTFE paste on the threads. Because, and I know I've shown this in the past with things, these go into oil. You know, they go into there. Oil can splash up in there. We don't want a leaky intake, so we'll just take the couple extra seconds and do it correctly. So, going to clean the surface on that while this is skinning over, and we will get it placed. We've already test fit the gaskets. We're very, very happy with those. It's time to put the balancer on. You just do that with a big old hammer, don't you? Yep. Just smack it on there, or use the correct tool, balancer install tool, So this will thread in where the bolt would go. You set this bearing in there. You turn that in nice and gently until it seats. You'll know when it seats. Okay, we just took the bolts out of the back because we had to have a bar, because obviously it's 85 foot-pounds on that center bolt, so engine does turn. So she is ready for a water pump, thermostat housing, couple plugs. Got to get a clamp for the distributor, pop the distributor in, and yeah, this is getting really close to ready for a dyno. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching. One thing to note, I have used this same set of Magnum, I don't know where I put the box, roller rockers for probably every engine I've built for years and years and years. And I've been very happy with them. I think for what they are, they're a good price. They're pretty reasonable. What did I do with that box? It was literally right there. Give me a minute. Okay, it was literally right there. So whatever. So I have been a big fan of these. They're very cost effective for what they are. Never had a failure. So, you know, you get what you pay for. Not only is it a roller tip, but it's a roller trunnion. So that's reducing friction. Obviously, because we got guide plates, we have to have hardened push rods. I've been running the high-techs for years. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the 7.8s, so we're going to try the trick flows on that. You know, the AFR gasket, this is the same gasket we ran on the blower motor in the 55, and that seems to work. So, yeah, I think that's going to call it for today. Got another car coming in here shortly. Got things to do. Anyway, thanks for watching.